Hey guys, today I interviewed Jay Scott, a very good friend of mine and a phenomenal guide and outfitter. But unapologetically, I'm going to tell you, we do not talk a ton about hunting in this interview. We focus on some subjects that I have found to be a common thread amongst my viewership and hunters as a whole. We talk about life, entrepreneurship, growing businesses, diet, all of that stuff. Yes, I'll have Jay back on to do a specific elk hunting strategy and tactics episode here in August. But for now, guys, dive into this. There's a bunch of stuff I've never talked about before publicly in this one. I hope you guys enjoy it. Let's get right into it. All right, guys, so I wanted to mention that I'm having these custom skinning knives made. These are called Cliff Skinner. I've got a whole bunch of reasons why I've had this knife made the way that it's made. Got a short video on the website. The details are there. pursuitwithcliff.com. Click in the corner up by shop. You'll see Cliff Skinner. Click that puppy. You'll get all the details. I wanted to start with a story just for the listeners because I remember, Jay, when I was outfitting, kind of in the thick of it. And the reality is, must have been, I was probably 5 or 6 years into owning my permits in the flat tops. And I had very little to do with social media. Like I kept up on it. I'd post a little bit on Instagram. And I had a guy who worked for me named Cody. And he's like, you gotta talk to this guy, Jay. I listen to his podcast all the time. So I called you out of the blue, and I don't know if you remember that first conversation, man, but we talked for like an hour and a half.
I
And I
do.
think we just, at least from my perspective, we clicked as friends. I think we had like a lot of mutual thoughts, in terms of the outfitting business and hunting and everything else. But what's wild, Jay, is I take that conversation, and for better or worse, man, that launched me into this social media thing. You had me on your podcast. I started actually giving a crap about keeping people up to date on social media and everything. And that was pretty much like, that was how it got me into all of this, man. And I actually, I learned a lot about it. I was just talking to an outfitter yesterday about it. I think that there's so much negativity around social media that we forget some of the positives like this, man. Like I wouldn't have this relationship with you. But the other thing is it's just integral. It's integral to our business, right? The outfitters and guides hate to do it, or they say they hate to do it, but you just have to do it in order to get the word out. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, social media is just a way to advertise your business to get what you want the customer to know about your business. So, for any business owner to be anti-social media, in my opinion, is just stupidity. It's nonsense. If you want to grow a business, you have to be able to communicate with people, and there's no better way to communicate with people than sorry, I've got a little sun glare here. uh,
That's all
there's
right.
there's no better way to communicate with people than to be able to have your own social media channels where you can directly communicate what you want them to hear from you, either about you or about your business. So, I remember that conversation very well. I remember we hit it off. I immediately was admired your background in business and background with education. Graduating from Stanford, you're the only person I know that's I know very few people that have graduated from college, none less from Stanford. And so, to be able to hit it off with you and see where your business, where you've gone with your outfitting business, now with your YouTube channel, and now with your social media platforms and whatnot. It's been exciting to see. But again, social media for me is just a way for me to explain to people about the businesses that I have. And quite honestly, Cliff, it's free. You've got
Yeah.
Instagram, you've got Facebook. They don't charge anything for that. So, it's one of those things as a business owner, and I'm just going to try and fix this glare right there. Sorry.
Oh, it's
Um,
perfect right there, man.
for a business owner to not like social media. You don't have to like it, but you do, as a business owner, in my opinion, have to be good at it. You have to be consistent with it. And it's a perfect way to be able to promote whatever it is you're doing, and it's free. I mean,
Yeah.
20 years ago, there were no ways like this to be able to immediately get out the information and the word, um, prior to social media. So now it's simple, and it's essential, in my opinion, for anyone, that whatever business you're in, to be able to portray whatever it is you're doing. And you've got, your YouTube channel, you've got Instagram, you've got all these different avenues to be able to communicate with your customer. But for me, it's essential. Any outfitters, any guides out there that don't like social media, I say get over it. You've just got to
Yeah.
flat out get after it and start. It's a perfect way to showcase what you're doing.
Yeah, yeah. And I think, I mean, it's in the culture of guiding and it's for fishing, hunting, everything. You'll always run into the guys that say, I just don't do it. People that are on there, it's all about their own egos and that sort of thing. And I understand like the angle they're taking, Jay, but I hate to say it, but I think a lot of that is just them being lazy about it. It's work, you
Well,
know.
lazy, and, to be quite honest, self-conscious. It takes a lot to be able to be on camera like you are all the time with your YouTube channel, and it takes work. And I think the people that in essence poo-poo it are the ones that uh, don't have the discipline, and, quite honestly, don't have the drive to want to succeed. I mean, in anything you do in life, you could be the best elk guide in the world. If nobody knows about you, or knows about your business, it's nothing, means nothing. I mean,
Right.
it's, if you're in business, there's no reason not to want to get better at your business, get better at communicating, get better at your craft. You could have the greatest product in the world, and if nobody knows about it, it's basically worthless, in my opinion.
Yeah, yeah.
So, for those listeners out there that are looking at starting a business, whatever it is, I say, get really good at creating good, genuine content on social media, and just get over the fact that there's going to be some people that don't like you. I mean, that's no different if you're
Sure.
on social media or not on social media. Um,
Right.
but there's not a better tool that I know of to be able to promote your business, and you can wake up every single day and have a plan, and be consistent with it.
Yeah, yeah. No, for sure. And we'll get into the normal discussions I have, Jay, on elk hunting and stuff. But if you don't mind, dude, I want to talk about this a little more because, dude, I think a missed part of your story, Jay, like there's thousands of hours of you talking about elk archery setups, talking about hunting Arizona, hunting Mexico, all of that. But man, I know for a fact that you're probably one of the most successful guys in the outfitting business, and I look at how many hunts you do, the fact that you operate in the U.S. and Mexico, and it is stunning. Being somebody in the business and dealing with scale, but not as much scale as you've really been able to build a successful business in the outfitting space, which I think is harder. I guess I'll ask you to comment on that first, Jay. Do you think the outfitting and guiding business is a harder business than other businesses to make a living or to have a even beyond that?
you
Do
know
you
i've
think it's harder?
I don't know that it's harder. I've never really thought about it from a standpoint of, is it an easy business or a hard business? I love hunting and fishing. And so for me, being a guide and outfitter is easy in the fact that I love it. So in order, to talk about it on a day like this, or to, during the hunting season, actually, fulfill my obligations with my clients and whatnot, I never really look at it as easier or harder. What I look at it as, it's work, and it's work that I've chosen to do. I'm also in the real estate business. I got my real estate license out of college in 1997, and immediately dove headfirst into real estate. And I've always been kind of a guy that I'm hot or cold. I'm all in or I'm all out. And for me, I've always wanted to be successful at business. I come from a fifth generation ranching family, and had my grandfather on my mom's side was a very successful rancher and cattleman, and bought and sold and traded cattle across the U.S. Mexico border. And to the day he died, had multiple ranches and always had stuff going on. And I was very fortunate at an early age to ride around with him and listen to him making trades and on different strings of cattle and whatnot, and purchasing property and doing real estate deals, and understanding how I got a firsthand look of how he interacted with people and how he looked at his business. So growing up, it gave me kind of a passion deep in my heart to want to be successful at whatever I do. And success is measured by your own internal clock. It's measured by other people as well. But I always I've been one that I just want to be good at what I do. I want to be genuine. I want to be respected. And so when I look at the outfitting business, when I really started diving into it, to me, it became about just communicating with people and providing a good service. There's lots of great hunters out there that then want to become a guide, but quite honestly, they have, very bad communication skills. They're not on time. They don't have a clean truck. All of those extra things that add up to being successful. But you can't replace the drive. The drive is whatever anybody is striving for. You have to have that burning just charge in your heart that you want to do something. And so with the outfitting business, for me, it was just wanting to be someone that you know do follow through with what I say I'm going to do. Let my yes be yes, let my no be no, and treat each client individually. And over time, 20 years ago, I didn't think the business would be near what it is now, and it's really grown. Got a great team around me. I for a long time was kind of a one-man band, with everything from booking the hunts to promoting the hunts to guiding the hunts and whatnot. And I've grown over the years to have great people around me and hire great people that can work for me. I've got Phil Kramer, my director of operations. He handles a lot of the day to day. We talk several times a day, but he's handling a lot of the business, the Mexico Coues deer business, mule deer business, desert sheep, and then the Gould's turkey business. And running a lot of hunters, to be good at that, you have to be able to provide a great service, and be organized, uh, communicate very well with the client, communicate well with the ranch owners, and kind of have your ducks in a row. So I look at the outfitting business, much like I've done with my podcast business, with my social media, with my real estate business. I treat it professional. I treat it as a professional, and I like to dot my I's and cross my T's and have all my ducks in line. So that's kind of a long-winded answer, but I think that anyone can be successful in any business if their heart is in it. They don't take no for an answer, and they just keep pushing. And you've got to work at it, though. I think one
Yeah.
element that's kind of lost, and it's just an observation, is that people think that you post a couple things on social media and all of a sudden your business is going to take off. That's not how it works. I mean, you have to be
Right.
consistent over a long period of time, to build that following and build that trust. It's all about, building that rapport with clients and building that trust. And once you have that trust built up, um, to be honest with you, the pressure gets even harder at times, because they expect a lot out of you, and they should. And so whether it's harder or not, I don't know. I just know that in any business, especially the outfitting business, if you can really treat it as a professional, and treat each individual client as an individual, and not part of a clump of my hunters for the year, that's where kind of the true magic is. And being able to provide of course you've got to provide a great hunt, quality service, good communication, all that stuff. But there's a lot of, in, you know, miscellaneous stuff that you've got to be good at as well.
Yeah, in the end, it's still a business, and I think that's what's it's interesting because I think as I've gotten out of like the operating part of it, Jay, I realized that whenever you're in whatever industry, the majority of the people within the industry will tell you how shitty of a business it is. You know what I mean? And I thought that was unique to outfitting, but you realize that's in most businesses. And then there's always a select few folks that, regardless of everybody being negative about the industry, they're killing it. You know what I mean? They're growing businesses in that space. I mean, in the hunting space, you see it in like the gear world, right? I'm sure 5 years ago, if you went and talked to a bunch of the knife makers, they would all tell you how there's no margin in the business. You can't separate yourself from other people. And we've seen giant knife companies grow,
Sure.
in the hunting. And it's so there it doesn't matter what industry you're in. It sure seems like the majority of folks are poo pooing it, but there's always people that are able to grind out and come up to the top.
Yeah.
And I think honey's no different.
Yeah, I mean, I always feel like no matter what environment I'm in, give me enough time and I'll be successful at it. It's just I kind of my mind is constantly working. I'm always thinking of new ideas of how to do things better and whatnot. But you've told me stories before about your days on Wall Street and some of the successful people that you ran into, and I know multiple people have told you like, drop me off on a deserted island and come back and pick me up, and I'll be sitting on a mountain of cash, or
Yeah,
I'll have built a business from nowhere. Um, you kind of have to have that mentality of like, what is it going to take to be successful, and then work it backwards.
yeah,
So
sure.
I mean, I'm pretty confident that if I just started a new business tomorrow, that within a period of time, if I have the time to devote to it, um, I'm going to have some success at it, or I'm going to figure it out. Now, along those lines, there's lots of struggles, and you get kicked in the face and kicked in the teeth quite a bit. But that's part of learning and figuring out the margin and figuring out the niche of the business. When I started out in real estate, it was not easy. But I
Right.
did a lot of the things that people weren't willing to do, and other people that had started on the same day that I did weren't able to do. Now keep in mind, there's people that are 5 million times more successful than me in real estate or outfitting or whatnot. But like, you got to push yourself, and you got to prioritize your time, and you've got to prioritize like what your goals are and what you're trying to do, and then just kind of build it. And it doesn't happen overnight. I think so many people in this day and age just want such stuff to happen immediately and have success. They see on Instagram some guy, jumps into real estate and he makes, 5 million bucks in his first year. Well, that's great, but it doesn't happen to everybody. That's a
Right.
small percentage. But then there's people that have worked for 25, 30 years and built a real successful business.
Yeah. I mean, universally, what I've noticed, Jay, is that what you don't see from most successful people is at least from overtly, you don't see unless you know them, is you don't realize how much resilience they've built up. You know what I
Yeah,
mean? Even like from the basic standpoint, I noticed that amongst the very successful people I know, a lot of them come from like a sales background, and I think part of that is just the resilience of being denied. You know what I mean?
absolutely.
Over the years. And that is it's so easy to say that, but it's so hard. It's so hard to be like, have a little business or be trying to sell a product and just getting denied all the time. But once you build up the resilience to it, it's like a superpower
It, it
that some people don't ever get.
It is like a superpower, and honestly, you're just building all those times you get kicked in the teeth, you're just building for that day that you're going to have success. And if you don't take rejection well, and you don't take, someone saying no well, you're going to have a hard time in sales. And so it all comes back to, like I was saying, what's motivating you to do what you're doing, and are you looking at it as that sale of that day, is that the final, or is that just a stepping stone to what you're trying to do?
Right.
So I I I'm fortunate that, I'm a pretty intense, passionate person, and when I'm into things, I go all in, and my wife always says my mind never shuts off. I go to bed thinking of ideas and wake up thinking of ideas, and
Sure.
some of them turn out to be good ideas, and some of them turn out to be, not good ideas. But I'm constantly trying to think of better ways to do things. And I think you look at a lot of those people that have been successful over the course of time, and um, they're not afraid to get punched in the face and just hop right back up and realize it's part of the learning curve, and part of it.
Yeah, yeah, no, for sure. And Jay, if you don't mind sharing, Jay, how many hunts are you like within your business are you keeping organized now?
Well, definitely a couple hundred hunts between all of the deer stuff. So this will be my 28th season doing deer hunts in Mexico, primarily Coues deer hunts. And we'll run a couple hundred hunters just for the deer season, and then a couple hundred for the Gould's turkey. I was a public land elk guide in Arizona for 20 years. Did desert bighorn sheep in Arizona for 10, 15 years. And you know the size of the business is one thing, but like I try, and as big as the business gets, I try and still make it a small business. I still try and
Sure.
communicate directly with the hunters, and keep it where it's not so big that it's not it's impersonal, if you will, or not personal. And again, like, you have to provide something good. Like my ranches in Mexico, they have to be good properties. They have to have good animals. The hunters have to have success, whether they're going on a guided or a DIY hunt. And I try and base all of the hunts that I do on the fact of, is it a hunt that I would enjoy going on? And when I've gone on hunts myself, what are things that I saw missing in other outfits that I've hunted with? And you know one of my biggest things is I love getting feedback from hunters, and there's nothing more as a business owner to have them say, that was the best turkey hunt I've ever been on. I
Sure.
recommend Jay Scott and his guides, and phenomenal from start to finish. That's where we get the pat on the back, and we see the satisfaction of, the smiles on their faces of, they had a great hunt. And there's nothing more disturbing as an outfitter to have someone that didn't have the experience that you're shooting for. So, yeah, it's we've built a big business. But I'm just as passionate about it today as I was when I started. And quite honestly, I didn't start out to try and build a big outfitting business. It just kind of got that way, and
Right.
it's kind of morphed over time, and it goes back to just trying to treat it as a business, and always be professional.
Right. You know, I'm going to ask you a question, Jay, that I think is a little bit of like a cliche in the business, but I wholeheartedly believed it, now that I've been able to reflect after getting out of the business a little bit, I feel like it was just on my own part, maybe not doing things quite correct or quite the way maybe I should have. But I got burned out a little bit, and I do feel like you'll hear the saying, don't make your hobby your job or you'll ruin your hobby. And in some ways that fit what happened to me a little bit, Jay, towards the when I sold my business or the couple of years before. But I don't feel that with you, man. Do you have any thoughts on that? On
Yeah,
on that idea?
I do, and I feel like if I had to elk hunt 12 months out of the year, as great as elk hunting is, as much as I love it, um, if I had to coos deer hunt every day of the year, if I had to fish every day of the year, it sounds fun for the first couple of years, but when you get into 28 years of doing hunts in Mexico, like the thing that I find works so good with me is I kind of compartmentalize my whole year, and I go from the beginning of the year, starting in January, we're doing our deer hunts in Mexico. Then February and March is kind of off time. Then we're going into the spring season of Gould's turkey. Then when I get done with Gould's turkey, then I'm in, I've spent probably the last 25 years up in Colorado, different places, actually in all over the West, fly fishing. So I'm kind of fly fishing from, June, July, and August. I'm into the fishing mode. Then I go into elk season, deer season. And so my mind is able to kind of energize itself because it's not focused strictly on elk hunting. All
Yeah.
throughout the year, might be working on hunting and working on my business of outfitting and hunting. But because of the seasonality of the business and the different seasons, I am able to, fully focus on elk the month of September, whether, it's 20 years guiding a public land elk and trying to find the biggest bulls in Arizona for my clients, and, really diving into that, or, being 5 years at the ot6 ranch where I was totally focused on trying to manage the ranch for, the oldest age class of bulls and trying to get the habitat in as good a shape as it could be. And, taking inventory of the animals, and then being able to shift from, say, elk to then mule deer in October and November, and start thinking about rutting deer as it goes into November, and then start going into coos deer season. So I believe, if you're a fishing guide and all you do is the same type of fishing, whether it's offshore or freshwater or saltwater, like, you have to watch, that your passion doesn't get diluted because you've done it so much, and then you're burnt out. And the reality is, maybe the best thing for you is to go for 5 years like crazy and light your hair on fire, and do
Yeah.
do tarpon fishing and just do it every day, and then you burn out and you move on to sail fishing or do something else. There's nothing wrong with that. But I've got good friends who out of college, or when they're trying to figure out what they're going to do in life, they're fly fishing guide in small town in Colorado, and they did it for, say, 3 years, and they took clients out that didn't know how to cast, and they're just dealing with tangles, and they think it's all great to take a fishing client out every day, but when there's fish rising out in front of you and the hatch is on and they can't even get the fly to the fish, that's going to burn anybody out over time.
Sure.
So, I just encourage people to be able to set up whatever you're doing potentially where you have some seasons. And while we're on that subject, I get a lot of messages on my Instagram. I try and do Q&A twice a week on my Instagram, and there's a lot of young guides, and not necessarily young, sometimes they're middle-aged people, but they really want to get into guiding, and they just, they see the life on Instagram of, whether it's me or other people that are having some success, and they're like, that they want to get in, and they want to know what's the best way to get in, and they think it's all great. And I'm like, okay, keep in mind that most people that are guides or outfitters, they're either have second jobs, they're the owner of the outfitting business, or they're dead broke. Like,
Yeah.
there's not a lot of guiding and outfitting where you can make a real sustainable living to support a family. So anyone out there listening, I am not in any way trying to discourage anybody from guiding and outfitting. As a matter of fact, I'm the total opposite. But I do like people to know that when you decide that you're going to do something, make sure that you kind of don't quit your day job or have other ways to earn an income, rather than just go all into guiding and expect you're going to make a couple $100,000 a year, because it's just usually not the case. You're going to,
Right.
for a few years, get to enjoy what you love, but as you grow older and you need money to live on, and you start having a family and kids and whatnot, that's where I don't cringe, but I like it. It makes me want to make sure that people know that if they're getting into it, and it could be fishing, it could be a, want to, they're passionate about roofing or plumbing or whatever it is, like,
Sure.
you have to have it kind of mapped out and realize that whatever you choose, and I tell young guys all the time, like, try and figure out what you could do in the winter and then what you can do in the fall. Or if you want to guide
Right.
fishermen all summer, have something else that you can do to make money and have an income, because, you know, chasing your passion of, growing up, I was a golfer. And in middle school and high school and college, I played golf. I played golf in college, and there were young guys, and I was one of them, that wanted to be a pro on the PGA Tour. And at some point in time, you realize, hey, I'm either not good enough, I don't have the mental capacity, I don't have the physical capacity. And some of those same guys that were so passionate about wanting to be on the tour, they chased that dream so much that they worked at a golf course and washed golf clubs or picked the range. And now they're 50 some years old and they're still at the golf course picking the range and washing golf clubs, because
Sure.
they wanted to chase a dream of being a golfer, being a tennis player, guiding, whatever. And I say, try and look at the bigger picture and kind of lay out a blueprint of what you want to accomplish in your lifetime, and then work it backwards and say, okay, how can I guide half the year and then have another job that brings in income so that I can get to where I want to be when I'm 60, 70, 80 years old. Does that make
Yeah.
any sense?
No, no, big time. And while you were saying that, Jay, I was just thinking in my mind of, I probably know a dozen guys that are, at the 40 to 70 years old, part of their life that, make a good living doing this. Universally, Jay, they have some skill set that they developed during their life that they could have survived off of. I don't know anybody who's truly successful in the outfitting world. And I'm not saying that they do it as like a hobby or anything like that. Like, this is a serious business to them, but somewhere along the path they used another skill set to allow them to continue to build their business. And personally, I've seen a lot of young guys work for me that want to be elk guides, want to be, sheep and goat guides, whatever. And it's one of the hard parts actually about operating the business is 2 or 3 years, they all think it's going to work out, but 2 or 3 years in, about when they become phenomenal guides, life happens. They fall in love, they have kids, all of this stuff, and then all of a sudden, the 40,000 they can make by traveling all over the place and guiding all over the place a year doesn't work anymore, and then they don't have something else that bridges the gap.
Yeah,
You know
so
what I
they've
mean?
they've killed some time. They've killed some time and put all their efforts into being the best elk guy they can be, but they've killed 3, 4, 5, 6 years of their 10 years of their life, and now they're going, well, I should have been doing this also, so that now
Yeah.
I have something to fall back on. And again, I'm not discouraging anyone from following their passion if they want to be a tarpon guide or a permit guide or a trout guide or elk guide, deer, whatever. That's
Yeah.
great, but always keep in mind that there might be consequences for following that passion. For me, getting out of college and diving straight into real estate, I wouldn't be able to do half the things I do if it wasn't for real estate. And I'm a huge
Right.
proponent of real estate. I know you are Wall Street, and you're still heavily into l- ju- looking for value in companies and buying stocks in
Sure.
companies and whatnot. But like, real estate to me is the reason and the way that I'm able to focus and also start businesses like my podcast, like my hunting and fishing, my outfitting business, is because I have real estate to fall back on. And real estate, by long time ago, buying properties and having income producing properties, create, in essence, mailbox money where it comes in every month, has allowed me to really chase my passion. So I'm passionate about real estate. I'm passionate about podcasting, outfitting, and some of the other things that I do. And having multiple streams of income in my opinion, is a great way to go as you get older. Now I'm 51 years old. I can't even believe it. I mean, I look in the mirror and I'm like, I don't even recognize the person in the mirror. I still in my mind am that 20 to 25-year-old kid who's just charging, go, 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 go. But the reality is, I'm 51. So, Lord willing, what do I have? Another 30 years, 40 years? Who knows? I mean, 80, 90
Right.
years old, I'd be fortunate to make it that long. But, it's just crazy how time gets away from you. With that being said, the real estate portion of what I do and letting time make those investments go up in value and whatnot has really worked out for me. So, and I know the same with you with the different businesses that you've had. Making good decisions when you're young, and especially good financial decisions, really allows you later in life to do things that to do chase your dreams and do things that you would like to pursue.
Yeah. No, I think you nailed it, Jay. And I can tell like your hesitation with it because you don't want to discourage people. And I'm the same way, man. But I think it's just empirical evidence, Jay. In the outdoor space, I mean, we observe like, our peers, people we know. I don't know about you, but what I observe is I observe people who are actually fairly unhappy, on one end of this spectrum, fairly unhappy, feel stuck. And then I observe another set of people that are very happy. They have they're grateful for the fact they have a very unique life. They get to be. I mean, the reality is like that cliche I said about this becoming a hunting guide ruin your hunting. Where it really doesn't. I mean, the fact is you get way more time in the outdoors if you're in this business, right?
Absolutely.
Anything else I would have chose to do in my life, there's no way I would have been able to hunt as much as I do right now. So to me, there is that's a huge plus of the business, and I'm grateful for that. So you see that on one end of the spectrum, people are very happy that, man, I got to do all these adventures. I'm able to take care of my family, all of that. But you don't see a lot of people in between. You see a lot of guys that on the other end of the spectrum are stuck. So I think your point, if anybody's interested in this world, is a good one, man.
Well, and that's why I brought up the point about the golfer. But there's other people that they were passionate about, being a cowboy and riding horses and roping and learning ranching and going to rodeos and doing all the different things. And they just say, "Oh, I'm not going to go to school. I'm not going to get educated." And I'm one that is kind of like, you know, I graduated from Arizona State, you graduated from Stanford. I don't know if I'd even go to college again. But that's not saying that I'm not super focused on or know the importance of educating. So whether you go get mentored by XYZ into this field, but learning and constantly,
Sure.
educating yourself on new things and enlightening yourself on things. But there's people in that were passionate about tennis and all they wanted to do was be a tennis pro, but the reality is they didn't have enough people around them to be like, dude, you know
Yeah.
you're 5'4" and like you're not 6'4" and long and lanky and you don't have a big serve. Like you may love tennis, but like are you sure you want to play on the tour? And again, I'm not trying to discourage anyone. I'm just trying to say that I'm a realist, and sometimes you have to
Yeah.
take Jay, you were a decent golfer at best, struggled to make the traveling squad on the college team. To think that you would play on the PGA Tour was a childhood dream. Now it's time for you to move on to do other things. And sometimes when you're like I was passionate about golf and that's what I would thought that I wanted to do. All it takes is just shifting your mind and your focus into something else and realizing, oh man, I really like
Yeah.
this or I really like that, and exposing yourself to other things. And all of a sudden, that same passion that I had for golf, I was able to put into real estate and was able to put into hunting and fishing and business and outfitting and all of that.
Yeah. 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 Well, and the thing that's even funnier within the hunting and fishing space, Jay, is there is no, contrary to what a lot of young guys that I talk to think, there is no like professional hunter. There is no like I became the best elk hunter, therefore now I have $1 million contract from Sitka. That it
I
doesn't
mean, it just
exist.
doesn't happen.
Yeah, it
I
doesn't
mean,
exist.
so
You know,
that
but
brings me to another point of like, I encourage my nephews, my nieces, anybody that will. I get a lot of people asking me advice when they're in high school and they're saying, "I want to do what you do." I say, "Okay, if you want to do what I do, you need to find something that you can make money at, whatever it is,
sure.
selling insurance, being a dentist, a doctor, a lawyer, opening and starting a business, being a roofing contractor, whatever it is, and then allowing that to finance other things that you might do and go for it."
Yeah,
I'm the biggest proponent of like, if you're passionate about it, go for it. And especially when you're young. When you're young, that's the time when you should, try things and dip your toe in the water and test it out, because you have the benefit of time on your side. The older you get, the harder it is to dive into something new and chase some new endeavor. Not saying you
right.
couldn't at 60 just start over and start a new business, but when you're young, that's when you could be taking risk. And if you take a risk, it's not really going to hurt you. You're out a little bit of time. But it's, I also encourage people to have people around you that you can ask and lay out your plan and say, this is what I have in mind for my life. And this is what I want to do to make a living. And what do you think? And,
Right.
choose those people that you listen to wisely. Because there are some people that are negative nillies, and they will discourage you from chasing your dreams. And, I'm the opposite of that. I encourage people, chase your dream, and flesh it out and do the best you can. And if you need to pivot and you need to switch gears. And there's nothing wrong with doing something for a couple years, and realizing there's another way, there's another angle, and pivoting, and then changing your course of action.
Yeah, yeah, no, for sure. And I think there's also just the, not to get, dwell on this too much, Jay, but there's also just the reality of the economics, right? I think people, this goes across all small businesses, but hunting in particular, there's this misperception that there's opportunities in there that don't require capital. Most opportunities in the hunting space that are good for somebody to pursue, they require capital. You got to put money up for leases. You got to buy permits. You got to, and if you don't have access to that, you haven't created a little nest egg or whatever, you miss out on that opportunity. That's not specific to hunting. I think it's across the board for people to think about that. But in hunting, I think it's forgotten a lot of the time. You know what I mean?
I
That
couldn't
it's
agree
still an
more.
aspect.
Yep.
And so it's just a it's it's not about like shitting on your passion, your excitement or whatever. It's just like if you want to get off on the best step on that career, developing some way to get access so you can be a part of buying, the outfitting business that can be scaled or whatever. It's just reality, And
Well, I mean, look at your progress and your path as to now. I mean, went to one of the best financial institutions in the country, and you are very, very intelligent. I tell people all the time, you're one of the smartest guys I know, and you went through that path. You got all your degrees in finance, and you were around the biggest players in the world. And I don't know if some people don't know that about you. Like Cliff was out of college and then was grinding it out in the financial world, the Wall Street world. And then at some point just said, you know what, I want to go back and I want to start an outfitting business, and then started an outfitting business. But Cliff, you wouldn't have been able to start that outfitting business and buy the properties you bought, buy the concessions you bought, if you wouldn't have had the resources and the money that you had made from your finance world. And then you were able to take that and build a giant successful outfitting business, and then sell that business. And then you shifted into starting a YouTube channel, which you started with one follower, and now you have 130,000 subscribers in a very short period of time. Like, you wouldn't be able to be talking to me today if you wouldn't have made those sacrifices early on, that, hey, I'm going to devote my first 10 years of my life to finance and business and Wall Street, and, dissecting companies and looking for value, and, buying stock in companies at a lower price and letting them grow over time. Like, you kind of are on this path of build, and now you're building a successful YouTube channel. I mean, you wouldn't, because right now, today, you would have to be making money. Well, you've already made money that allows you to probably go for a short period of time of not having that daily income, because you're building a new business. You're building the YouTube
Yeah.
business, which now brings in income and is good. But there was a buffer time there. There was a period of time when, because of your prior discipline and the decisions that you made before, allowed you to then pivot and reinvent this new career of yours. And
Yeah, and I don't, and honestly, Jay, I don't actually mind being transparent about it, because I think in some ways, people look at me, and maybe sometimes they create their own like narrative. So I don't actually just mind being. I mean, you kind of nailed it, but transparency wise, when I got into the hunting business, if I specifically got in a way that I knew was scalable, and I think this goes for all businesses, but if the problem is I had some capital to do that. I had done, I had, timing was great. I'd worked pretty hard in a different field, so I had some money to do that. But it wasn't a total, like, I think it's misconstrued that Cliff. I think there's a little bit of, sometimes people suggest this, like, well, Cliff was, crazy rich before he got into outfitting, and this is like his side hobby or something. No, like I did, like, out what I grew in the outfitting business is that, yeah, it's a big part. It's a realistic part of my growth economically, my career, just, my own self confidence in building businesses. Like, the hunting business was a true part of that. But if I wouldn't have had, that mindset and some capital to get going in the beginning, the 10 years that I dedicated to outfitting, I could have ruined my life.
yeah,
That's how I feel about it. If I wouldn't have bought the right one, I wouldn't have got into the right situation where I was really thinking about building up equity in things, I could have really displaced a lot of things. I mean, you see it. This is it. Just, I mean, we're going off the deep end on business stuff, but I think it's probably useful to a lot of the audience. You see it across businesses. Guys get into undercapitalized businesses. It could be hunting, fishing, could be other stuff. And within 10 years, they've lost their family. They've lost their passion for everything. It's a realistic thing that happens. You know what I mean? And so for me, part of it was probably luck, but part of it was also foresight. I always viewed, like, I'm going to structure my world in this space to always be building equity. And yeah, like, this stuff is the same thing. YouTube, social media stuff. And you see that a lot of people don't talk about it, Jay, but a lot of these people with successful content businesses, they're not a guy who had no money, quit his accounting job, and then started building a YouTube channel. And then
right.
now he's living off of it. That It's not the case. Most of them figured out a runway.
That's right. Absolutely.
So yeah, and I hope it's very useful for people to understand that. You know what I mean?
You know, Switching gears for just a second, I do have to give you a bunch of credit. December 2022, you came down and went a few days with us desert sheep scouting
Oh yeah.
for a desert sheep hunter that I had in Arizona. And that October, prior to that, so a few months before, one of my good friends who actually just left here in Colorado got diagnosed with colon cancer. And when you showed up there and hung out with me for a few days on that desert sheep hunt, my mind was in a place where, at that point, I guess I was maybe had not just turned 50, and but was, saw one of my good buddies diagnosed with colon cancer, and the doctor had told him that a good chance processed foods and whatnot were, playing a big part in a lot of people getting colon cancer and whatnot. So I ask you a bunch of questions about your diet and how you eat and whatnot. And you're younger than me, but I always take what you say because you're very intelligent and you're smart about a lot of things. And you kind of told me about, whole foods, carnivore type diet, eating a lot of meat, cut out the processed. And, it's now that I look back, it's common sense, really. But starting on December 5th, 2022, I just dove straight into, trying to eat as much meat and protein as I could, and have completely cut out all processed foods, cut out sugar. And my wife has always had a great diet, but she's like, I can't believe she's. In one hand, she says, I can't believe you're doing this and have done it this long. On the other hand, she says, I know you, and this is exactly how your personality is. Once you decide
Sure.
you're going to do something, you do it. And I mean, Cliff, I lost 25, 27 pounds. I weigh like 165 now. I'm 6'2". I'm as lean as I was in high school. And it's amazing how easy my diet and how eating is. I can remember we hiked up a big long ridge and I'm popping granola bars and, chocolate chip granola bars and eating just crap. This was on like December 1st or maybe the end of November, and you had brought your own in a glass container, steak, and you're eating protein and some apple, dried apples, I think is what you had brought.
Yeah.
And now that's how I am. I eat fruit, I eat whole foods, I eat mainly meat, I eat a ribeye steak. I've probably eaten a ribeye steak. There's probably 10 nights out of the last 2 years that I have not eaten a ribeye steak. My body craves that fat. I now understand that my body, all of our bodies get energy from either sugar or fat. And it literally, the first 60 days of doing the quote unquote carnivore diet was probably, it was horrible. I had no energy. It took about 60 days for my body to realize that it wasn't getting sugar anymore, and that it needed to take the fat that I was eating and convert that fat into energy. And I got to credit you for that. And a lot of people say my diet's crazy, but honestly, I don't think I've ever been healthier. And it, it's easy to eat the way I eat now because it's just the way I do it.
Yeah, that's what I
And
was gonna ask you. You don't have a real big urge to go back to to jump off of it, huh? Yeah,
no,
me
as a
neither.
matter of fact, my body, I about 6:30 at night, I cook a ribeye steak. The first thing I do, I put Redmond's mineral salt on there, and the first piece of meat that I cut is a piece of fat. And
Yeah,
my just like I used to look at a Pop Tart or a piece of ice cream or a fudge cake and like, oh, I want that.
yeah,
I look at that steak, it's the craziest thing. And until you've gone through it, you won't realize it. My body craves that fat. My body craves that
yeah,
meat.
yeah.
And people are like, well, don't you get sick of it? I'm like, I don't sick of it.
It's odd that it's
I
really
love
odd that
it.
you don't. Yeah, yeah.
Right.
You know what? I mean, not to get too conspiracy theorist about it, Jay, but you start to realize that the variety that humans are used to is for sure at least partly like a manufactured business marketing thing. Because I'm the same
100%.
way. I people are I mean, my wife still, she eats healthy, but she, has a variety of food, and she's like, "Don't you get bored?" I'm like, I don't. I just don't. I don't get bored
I
of
I
eating
look
my
at
diet.
I look at the way I used to eat, and had the blood sugar, ups and downs, and now it's just even keel. There's so many good things about eating whole, unprocessed foods. And one of the things for me is I always had to eat by noon. By noon, if I
Yeah.
hadn't eaten lunch, I was at noon, I was eating my lunch. Now, most of the time, I don't even eat lunch. To to
Yeah.
think that to think that I don't eat lunch now is, if I went back to myself 5 years ago and said, you're gonna get to where you don't even eat lunch, there's no way. I'd be the grumpiest. My
Yeah.
blood sugar would be, you know, I would be having all sorts of spikes and drops. And now I eat such a big breakfast that I'm just not even hungry during the day. and then I eat my ribeye steak at night, eat an avocado. Like, I just got to credit you um, for kind of getting me on this path, and encourage anyone that's out there looking, um, man, get away from that processed food and that sugar. And to this day, I'm a sugar addict. So I'm
Yeah.
still, um, I'm a sugar addict. I have to consciously wake up and say, I'm not doing it. I'm not eating bread.
Yeah.
I'm not eating all that
Sure.
other junk. And, everything, what I didn't realize, Cliff, is every bit of food out there that we are told that is good for us or that is in our face at the grocery store is either processed or has sugar in it. It's
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
it's mind-blowing to see, and it comes back to marketing. And we could go down a rabbit hole, but anyway, encourage people out there to eat whole foods, real food, on non-processed food, and I promise you, your life will be better.
Yeah, yeah, no, it's really it's an interesting concept. I mean, I have two questions for you on it, Jay, and they're kind of unrelated. So approach it however you want. One, like a lot of hunters, you do have time that you're in the field, and so you've got to deal with, what do I eat as a snack if I'm on the carnivore diet or keto diet? What do I focus on that front? How do I organize that? So I want you to answer that for me. And the other one I want to hear is how many people have you, and I know you're not out like, whoring the idea to everybody and promoting it to everybody, but how many people have you have like around you have tried it and it's worked for them too?
So I'll answer the second question first. About 35 to
Yeah.
35 people. I've got two people that have lost over 60 pounds. Every
Yeah.
single one of the 35, there's not one that hasn't lost at least 10 pounds. And
Yeah.
I say, I never started this to lose weight. I was long and lean, and I weighed 190 pounds, 6'2". Like, I'm 50 years old. I'm 51 now, but like, I was never overweight. That's not why I did it. I did it to become more healthy.
Yeah.
And processed foods and sugar. And now that I do a lot more research now, looking back, I just cringe thinking of how I ate for 50 years and probably the impact that it has or will have on my body. I'm hoping that by eating pure and good, it will reverse some of the damage that I've already done to my body. But I can tell you literally, and like, you'll never see me posting a shirtless selfie or crazy stuff like, what
Yeah.
other,
Sure.
that's not about that. But I
Yeah.
can tell you, I am lean like I was when I was a freshman in college, or lean like I was when I was a senior. And all it is just changing my diet.
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
35 people, uh, two of them have lost over 60 pounds. None of the people, I just tell them what I eat, and then give them a few places to watch and follow, and they go on their own journey. But no one has reported back that this didn't work, or, oh, I don't feel better. I sleep better. My joints feel so much better. My mind is clear. My mind is sharper. Um, I don't have those swings of, up and down of the sugar, um, you know, imbalance, if you will, and whatnot. Uh, as far as preparing, the one thing that I have not done once I switched over to this diet is unsupported backpack hunts with this
Right.
diet. And I think that's where I would have to do quite a bit of research. I'd probably lean on you to figure out how I could get my protein, um, cleanly, and how I could get some carbs, because I do eat fruits. I eat bananas,
Sure.
blueberries, avocados, and so it's easy for me on most of the hunts I do because they're day hunts and they're not unsupported, 10-day backpack hunts. I think in that scenario, I would have to reach out and really do some research on, potentially some dried fish, dried meats, dried fruits, that
Right.
kind of stuff is probably the avenue and the way that I would go. But very simply, all the Mexico hunts, the elk hunting, all the hunts that I do, I still try and have 4 to 5 organic, free range eggs in the morning. Still try and have my, 8 ounces of the best bacon that I can find with no nitrates, no nitrites, organic, protein, whether it's grass-fed hamburger, trying to get that protein. And then I supplement with, midday. If I'm hungry, I'll have a banana, I'll have blueberries, I'll have any types of berries. And then at night, like last year during elk season, I would just make a ribeye steak when I come in and eat. And so
Sure.
I'm able to kind of maintain the same diet that I eat during hunting season as non-hunting season.
Yeah. I think it's not that hard, Jay. I mean, I think you nailed it. And then if I'm doing long day hunts and I'm not gonna be back or whatever, a lot of times I will eat cold steak. I was just on a trip the last couple of days. We went and spearfished a bunch of carp, and one of the guys that was with me was a bunch of carp, excuse me. But one of the guys that was with me was laughing because I just pull out a frozen, or not frozen, but a cold steak, and I
That's what
eat
I
it.
do.
I do that.
I
Yeah,
cook it. I
it's
cook several. You had told me, hey, just cook several at a time, slice them up, keep them in a container, and just eat cold meat, and it's great. I put a little Redmond's mineral salt on there, and have it in a container. And like when I'm out on the river, so in the summers, I'm fishing a lot during the day. I do the same thing. I'll take a little bit
yeah,
of blueberries. And I know you don't eat a lot of fruit, but I take a little bit of blueberries and take, I mean, my meat, and I eat my ribeye steak with a good fat on it, and it works really, really well. And I'm not hungry. I look at eating totally different now. Before it was like, oh, how could I get the best tasting this and that, and but you look around, you go to these restaurants, and you look around, and you look at people, and you're like, that's
yeah,
that's going to be you in 15 years. Like, you can't even get out of the chair.
yeah,
And
yeah,
people are like, well, do you miss it? I'm like, I don't miss it at all. Like, I
yeah.
might go to a restaurant, I'll just try and order any kind of meat that they have on there. I don't want any sides or anything. If I'm feeling, oh, I want to, 1 month, one day out of the month, I'll have sweet potato fries. And that's my big cheat
Sure.
is sweet potatoes are fine. Obviously, eating them fried. But, one day out of the month, I'll have sweet potato fries. And that's like a treat for me, if you
Yeah.
will. But I get my blood tested every 6 months, and that's been kind of fun to monitor and kind of go over that stuff. And there's so much that I have to learn about it, but it's neat to be able to kind of start monitoring your health. And I've been so fortunate for 51 years to be healthy, but I you know having my buddy get colon cancer was kind of a slap in the face to, like, Jay, you need to wake up and start, eating better, because I believe diet is so important now, where I didn't place, as much importance on it prior to this happening.
Yeah, yeah. No, I hear you. And I mean, it's just amazing to me. I mean, it's crazy because the last 20 minutes, Jay, we sound like we're trying to sell something and we're not selling anything. You know what
Nothing.
I mean? Like
Just try,
it just
just
is what
would
it
love,
is. Yeah.
people to get more healthy, and
Yeah.
not
And
selling a thing. No financial gain in it in any way. Just had those 30 some people reach out and just say, basically that, thank you for telling what you've done in your journey, and it's really helped me. And to me, that's all. Just trying to help people be better.
yeah, yeah, no, and it's interesting that you mentioned something, and I know, like exactly like you said, it's not like you're on Instagram, showing everybody your abs or whatever. But when people, sometimes I will get into this conversation with people, what are the long term effects of this diet? And I'll be honest, I don't know, Jay. Is my cholesterol is slightly elevated because of it, and my diet is probably very similar to yours now. Like I eat a fair amount of fruit too, and then I cheat on the diet a little bit in social situations. Like I find going out to dinner with people, going and staying at somebody's house, it can be a little problematic diet, right? But whatever, minor variations to it.
But
I'm
if
not worried about.
80 or 90% of the time you're eating clean, you can eat 10 or 20% of the
Yeah,
time and eat complete junk, and your body,
right.
it's amazing how it processes through that and figures it out. But sorry to interrupt, but
No, you're good.
it's you get people saying, "Oh, that's a weird diet," and you're like, "Really?" It's like I'm eating whole foods that no one's touched, no one's done anything to. If that's weird to you, I'm sorry. Maybe you're the one that's weird.
Yeah.
Um,
Well,
y-
and the thing is, Jay, is like, and this I think is important. Like the cosmetic component, one, it just is important, right? We all like, even guys, you want to feel good, you want to look good or whatever, even if it's just privately. And I had 5 or 6 years, man, where I hadn't seen my abs, and I'm like a very physical guy. There's a lot of things I do to keep in shape. And when I got on that diet, it's like, oh, there they are again. And
yeah,
I hear that from a lot of people. And it's really hard for me because I don't have some good, I'm not dedicated to my life to like going out and research this or whatever. But and whenever I do, there's such mixed science on it. I think it's hard for there really anybody to go pinpoint some conclusion. But I can tell people, hey, I don't know. Maybe this is going to shorten my life a little bit. I don't know. I don't know the science, but just the pure physiological things. Like I feel like not having fat on my belly is an indicator of health. And maybe it's biased, but I can look down and be like, hey, when I'm on this diet, I can see my abs. You know what I mean? And so to me, I'm like, I'm not really all that worried about shaving 6 months of my life off statistically.
yeah, and I mean, honestly, it's everyone has their own choices, but to me, it's not really a diet. To me, it's more of a lifestyle, and I know that sounds kind of goofy, but it's
Yeah,
just the
yeah.
way I eat now, and it's simple. Now that I eat the way I eat, it's so simple. My wife laughs because she's like, "You have about 5 items you need me to buy
Oh,
at the
yeah.
store, and that's it." And it's
Yeah,
simple. It's I don't look at eating as like I'm going to um like enhance my life by eating this, whatever that's, you know, got all this crazy taste and
sure.
whatnot to it. I'll just take a nice steak with a little bit of salt and pepper on it. Period. Done.
Yeah,
Every
yeah.
day.
Yeah, it's easy. Yep. But it's funny you bring up the ingredients deal because I'm the same way, man. I mean, I can go to an Airbnb, Jay, and I can shop for a whole week in 35 minutes.
Yep.
You know what I mean?
It's
That in
simple.
itself is kind of nice.
It's simple, and believe it or not, when you get into the routine, your body loves it, your taste loves it. Like it's not like you're going, "Oh man, I got to eat another thing of eggs. I got to eat more steak." Like no, you get to
Right.
where you just that's what you do. You feed the machine and move on. Focus on something else.
Yeah, yeah. No, for sure, man. Dude, we didn't talk about elk hunting at all, Jay, but I'm actually glad we didn't because I think these topics are just as helpful to people. I think there's a ton of people that watch the channel that'll find them both super interesting, man. So I'm gonna have you back on again to do an elk hunting one. But
Well, I was all fired up to talk elk hunting,
I know,
but
man.
I'm
But
long-winded.
yeah, no, no, no. These were, dude. I love this stuff, and I find more and more, Jay, that I have a certain audience on this channel that a lot of these topics will resonate with them. And I hope over time I could do more stuff like this. You know what I mean? More stuff that's not just hunting centric. I mean, you deal with so many clients, Jay. Don't you realize that there are these little threads that tie hunters together that have nothing to do with hunting? I find that interesting.
Yeah, I mean, it's so interesting how you can sit down and have a conversation with hunters and talk for a long time about not even talk about hunting and realize that because you're hunters and you kind of have that joint, common theme, but then you get into all these other topics that all of a sudden creates, other bonds and other common points of interest where you can have these conversations and talk for an hour and realize you never even talked about hunting.
Yeah, for sure. But thanks so much for coming on, man.
I do want to come back and talk about elk hunting, so you'll have to
Yeah,
have
we'll
me
do
on
it.
again.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Hey, let people know where they can follow you, Jay.
The easiest way is J Scott Outdoors on Instagram. So just all one word, J Scott Outdoors. My website, jscottoutdoors.com. and that's the best way. And love to hear from you guys. If you guys have any questions or comments, I do try and do Q&As twice a week on my Instagram, on my story. So if you have any questions, feel free to put them in the question. I try and answer every single question that I get. And yeah, just appreciate you having me on here, Cliff. Again, amazing success that you've had building your YouTube channel. I love your videos. I love how informative they are, and you have a real expertise. You grew up as hunting and fishing. I love the new passion in the diving and some of the saltwater stuff, which I know your passion, you've kind of shifted some of your passion, and maybe not, maybe you've done it for years, but like it's fun to see you doing that stuff that's new to you and invigorating, and you can see that you're really challenged by it, and
Yeah,
that's
for
always
sure,
fun.
man.
I love tuning into your YouTube channel.
Nah, dude, I appreciate it. And for sure, I could get lost on life's too short, Jay. There's too many freaking adventures, man. You
That's right.
know,
That's what's
and
beautiful about it.
I know you share that mindset, and honestly, with all my stuff, Jay, and I know you're the same way. Like so much of your trips are adventures and that sort of thing. Like I know a lot of my audience, I know a lot of your audience. They're guys that I think in some ways live vicariously through watching stuff. But man, and that's great. Like it's awesome. I think that the hunting media space and all that is great for that too. But man, if this stuff motivates just a few people to go on adventures, like my spearfishing stuff, dude, no, but like the views are low,
But it doesn't
all that.
matter. You're
Yeah,
passionate about it, and you may influence one person out there to, go
yeah,
experience spearfishing, and you've even got me thinking about it. So the
yeah, for
reality
sure.
is we can't judge what we do by the numbers of views and whatnot. And that's not why we do it. We have to do what we're passionate about also, and let our passion come through in whatever we do. And some will gain more traction than the others, but the reality is we all have to live our life, and it's fun watching you. You're a great family man, businessman, and you get to enjoy your passions and your hobbies. And I just appreciate you as a friend and appreciate you having me on today.
Yeah, you too. Thanks, Jay.
All right,
Awesome,
buddy.
man.
Take care.
So yeah, if you enjoyed this content, do me a huge favor. Subscribe on whatever platform you consume it on. Spotify, Apple, YouTube, whatever works for you guys. Everything else is on my website, pursuitwithcliff.com. Go there and it's going to be very apparent to you that I work my ass off just to not have a real job. All the hunts I guide, all the seminars I put on, all the unique experiences I offer, and the membership site, all the details are there.